Welcome back to the Run Radio podcast. I'm Trina Wilcox, and because of Run Radio being all about innovative, resilient, relentlessly resilient people, I want to welcome a writer today, Tracy Smith Mathis, who's going to talk to us about her book, Pennies from Heaven. Welcome.
Hi, Trina. Pennies from
Vietnam. Yes, I don't know
Vietnam.
where I got heaven in my head, but
It is actually a very common mistake, and I used to do it myself because I had a
oh,
different
good.
name for the book. The book was named War and Pennies when I was going to self-publish it, and
Oh,
the
okay.
publisher changed it, and I didn't like it because I was like, the pennies actually never came from Vietnam. My
Oh,
brother promised to send me pennies, and he did when he was in Fort Rucker, Alabama, the ones that he didn't spend on booze and strip shows, and he wrote home to tell about
right.
it. Cigarettes. But, there's no American coins in Vietnam, South Asian jungles. So
Yeah.
that just shows sort of how naive he was.
Oh
And
my goodness.
they almost have taken on, um, just a lot of different meanings than just him sending, it was his promise to kind of come home safe. And to me, every penny's like a soldier. We can't, devalue them anymore.
Well, let's step back to how this book even became a thought for you. And how long have you been writing, or were you even writing? Was it just more important to tell the story than to be a writer? Tell me the whole process.
I've been a writer my whole life. I was a columnist, and I've just always enjoyed writing. But this was a very personal project. It was when my brother passed. It was 2000, and I was handed a box. And my sister-in-law said, "You might want to take a look at these." He was literally on his deathbed, and they were 99 letters that he had written to our family when he was in the Army.
Wow.
About 75 of those were in Vietnam, and that's what's in the book. So when I read those letters, I was blown away because there's like almost 36,000 words. And the brother I knew never talked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was amazing to me. And I immediately started like diving into them, writing out the highlights, chronicling them, and researching them. He passed and life happened, and I really didn't pick it up for maybe 10 years. Mid 2010, 2012, somewhere in there, I picked it back up. Started looking for his friends, actually, which has been the hardest part, but the most rewarding part, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's just finding I found his best friend. That was the first one that I found. And he had been looking for my brother for 48 years. And
Wow.
I found him through social media. It took like 2 years for him to reply to me. But once I found him, he said, "I'm going to tell you everything that happened to your brother."
Oh.
And then I started sharing a little bit of the letters with him, and then he shut down. He was like, "I can't do it, Tracy. I'm really sorry." And it broke my heart, and I put the book on a shelf. I couldn't do it. If he couldn't handle it, I wasn't going to write it,
Right.
About a year later, he sent me a text or email and said, "Write your book. I'm ready to share it with you." It took him about a year. He had to really just process my brother's death because he had been looking for him.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, what he said, broke. It felt like it was bringing things back out of the black box that he had swiftly put them in all those years. So anyway, since then, he's read most of the letters, and if not all. And he helped me find other veterans in the same group, and they helped me find other veterans. And then I interviewed them and put them all together. And I found 2 helicopter pilots that were in major issue battles and rescues with him. And then I also found Miss America. So that's a
That's
story in
really
itself.
neat.
Yeah. So putting all these pieces together and people together is kind of what kept me going, not even knowing if I was going to write a book, honestly. I just thought I should share these incredible letters with the world because I'm sure there were gaps in it, even though he told my parents a lot of stuff. There was a lot he didn't tell. And so I discovered some of that when I found his buddies.
Yeah.
Some of it's bad, but it explained sort of why he was suddenly silenced. And in these letters, you can see my brother go from a 17-year-old to a very hardened 19-year-old,
Right.
in the span of a year, a little bit more. But yeah, so did that answer your question? The
Yeah.
reason I wrote the book is because those letters were so compelling. They told so many, sorry, let me
That's
silence this. Great stories. And it was not something that I always felt comfortable with. I struggled a lot. My brother was very, very private.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I was like, he would kill me if I shared these letters, because some of them are talking about women and
Yeah. Very
shooting people,
personal.
and they're also very raw. One soldier that read them said these words to me, and this is what kept me going too. He is a Vietnam veteran with severe PTSD to this day. He read them in one weekend and came in with the biggest smile on his face I'd ever seen. I've known him most of my life. He's my cousin's husband. And he said, Tracy, you should have wrote this book 25 years ago.
Oh.
And you have to write it. Larry would love it. And it's every quote, every soldier's story.
Goodness. That has to feel rewarding, though, to know that you're touching lives with your brother's story and making those connections for people. I mean, how has that made you feel?
Yeah, I'm just kind of living it and enjoying it. It's literally been, I think, divine intervention step after step. So
Right.
I'm trying to just enjoy it, but I'm really blown away at what has transpired. I just never expected to meet the people and be on the stages and be able to talk to other veterans. I'm now trying to collect interviews from other veterans and feature them on, some things that are coming up in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to have this entire little spin-off from this that will hopefully live on to help veterans in different ways. So that's sort of coming out of the book. But
And that kind of sort of answers my follow-up with, I mean, are you expecting that you could have another book or even a series that follows with other stories from veterans and keep up the inspiration?
I don't know if it's another book, because I
Right.
do have another book, which I'm glad to tell you about.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with military, but I'm happy to tell you it's a crazy story. Uh, but what I would like to do is now a lot of people are doing this on a much bigger stage than me, but anywhere I go, if I'm able to connect with a veteran and get them to tell me their story on my little fancy recording studio
Mhm.
and my little lavalier mic, and just capture a story or two that maybe they haven't left with their family, or just to preserve as many stories as we can, because
Yeah.
especially from Vietnam vets, they are now, 75, 80 years old. And I think they're fine. Trina, you know how they are. They don't like to talk about stuff
Mm. Hmm.
except with each other. 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't get it, right?
Yeah.
We're
Right.
civilians.
Right.
But what I find is when they do talk about it, it's very cathartic and good for them. And that was evident from the first time I stood in front of veterans and talked. And that is what keeps me going, because if anybody had reacted like his friend did and said, "Get away from me, I don't want to talk about that stuff," I would have stopped it. Right? I wouldn't have
Hmm.
wrote the book. But the very first time my brother killed somebody, he wrote home about it, and he was like really positive about it. He was like, I thought it was going to be horrible to kill somebody, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Every soldier's story. He was a boy, he was in a helicopter in the back seat, so he was a long way away from his victims. It was not it I kind of put it in my mind like it was a video game, almost. I mean, a very live. But he was, he probably saw them fall, but he wasn't at that point, face to face with the enemy, which made a difference. But talking about the first time you killed apparently triggered something in the vets that I spoke to on that very first time. And the guy that was in charge of the event got up afterwards and he said, I am a Christian pastor and I never really talked about this, but Tracy, I felt the same way.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm not proud of that.
Yeah.
But that's how they felt in the moment, and whatever they felt, they're valid feelings because we haven't been in that situation, and it's kill or be killed. So, there's just not an option. But I think when he said that to me, and I have it on, I was videotaping him on my phone. It was after I spoke. He said, everyone in this room has a feeling about the first time that happened. Whatever that feeling is, we all went through it and we should talk about it because it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
It's what you have to do in your service. So getting that kind of validation from the first time I spoke was the first divine intervention, I will say. And then just thing happened after I kept finding people and looking for people. And about halfway through everything, I was like, he talked about Miss America one time. Wonder if I should look her up. Google.
Yeah.
Poof, there she is. She's alive and well and still beautiful. She's living in Oklahoma and she has read, endorsed the book, and she's given me some really private, beautiful words to put in it. So the very day that my brother got to fly his first helicopter, he was the guy in the back, he won the flight. He showed off for Miss America and he pushed the button to let all the 48 rockets shoot into the side of a mountain. That was just to show off for her, to let her know that she was safe and protected by the 1st Cavalry. Well, he never met her. He just wrote about it in his letters. And then 2 days later, wrote about her again. But the same day that happened, she wrote about him or that incident in her diary.
Oh, neat. So they had never met?
They had never met. I just found Miss America. She found her diary. She read it to me. It had the same date.
Oh, neat.
Today, they shot rockets in the side of a mountain.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you and your brother really close? I mean, it sounds like he only shared personal experiences with you.
No, we were very close. But he was 14 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
There's 2 kids in the middle. I was much younger. I was a little girl so he, I was just the baby of the family. So during the letters, you'll see he spoils me and tells me all these sweet sentiments, to be good and stuff like that. My sisters were teenagers, so they weren't good. Like me.
Honoring.
Yeah. But we were very, very close, all of our life, even then. However, he didn't tell me these stories. He didn't tell hardly anybody this story.
Oh, okay.
I know very little from him. I pieced them together between him, telling me a tiny bit, his wife, and the buddies that I found from his war. There was a lot of stories I never had heard. And then mostly his letters. His letters were they were like a reporter every 3 days coming to our house from the front lines. Yeah. And this man was very active in the war. He was a crew chief, which meant every single time his helicopter went up,
Uh-huh.
He went up with it. And
Okay.
while he was up there, he was a door gunner. So he hung out the side with a machine gun,
Yeah.
shooting people.
Goodness.
Yeah, rocket pods underneath them that they shoot off. And he's 18, he's 5'9", he's maybe 150 pounds.
Yeah.
The smaller you were, the better, because it took up less space for
Yeah.
the people that had to get on with you if you had to stop. And so those helicopters were very, very active. He was extremely active in that war. He saw a lot of stuff and he wrote home to tell about it.
Did you ever get nervous in all of this that you got something out of context or maybe, mistold something? I've always, whenever I watch docuseries or something like that, I'm like, what if that was a mistake and the deceased never intended it to be that way? Or what if someone found my letters, God forbid, the things I write in different places that are just serious or not serious? It'd be a mess. Did that ever occur to you? Did you ever think, oh gosh, what if I had this out of order or wrong or
It took me 12 years to, so yeah, like over and over and over.
so you
I probably had 30 solid, maybe 40, 50 edits of this book.
oh goodness. Yeah.
It was very hard to write.
Yeah.
It was very personal. And I thought that it was done in March of 2020. I had scheduled to be on a stage, a pretty big stage. And that was Veterans Day, Vietnam Veterans Day is March 29th. A lot of people don't even know that, but Vietnam has their own Veterans
Oh,
Day,
okay.
March 29th, 2020. Well, you know what happened in March 2020, about the middle of the month, everything
Yeah.
shut down. So that gave me time, actually like years, to revisit the book. And I joined a group of writers who started helping me query agents and publishers, which is something I was just going to self-publish it because it's very, very slim chance of getting published. And I worked a long, long time to make a really good query letter. And
Yeah.
then, you have to send it out to this group says on average, 100 queries need to go out, not at one time. You have to filter these over weeks to get an agent. And then that agent has to get you a publisher. However, mine went a little differently because I had queried a bunch of agents. I was probably in the 50s. I was about halfway through my 100
Right.
list. And I had gotten a couple people that said, yeah, send me some more pages. So that was encouraging. Anytime they even call you back, it's good because most of them ignore you. And then I found a writer's magazine that had the back of it, publishers that don't need agents. And that's actually where I got my publisher.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
However, I went and got an agent, which is kind of a reversal thing. And I won't go into all of that. But typically you get an agent and they're like your cheerleader, like your real estate agent. They go help you find the right publisher.
Mhm.
And they have to really be a champion for you. I happen to find a publisher that does a lot of Vietnam memoirs. That's one of their footholds in the market. And they sell to a lot of libraries, which really appealed to me because globally, this will be a story that lives on. And that's really all I could ever ask because my brother's a hero in this, book a couple times,
Yeah. Well, that's really fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your other book and what is the experience with it in getting it written and published?
That's a great question. I wrote the other book about 20 years ago, probably in the 1990s somethings.
Okay.
And it is a story that is true about my adoption.
Okay.
And you'll see a tiny mention of that in my book with Larry, but obviously I didn't want to confuse the reader, and go into all that. That kind of came in and out of the book a few times, but it's not really in there. It's a really interesting story. And when I tell it to people, even the little bits and pieces that I might tell, they go, "You got to write a book." And they've said that my whole life. So it was not really an adoption. My parents told me I was adopted, but I wasn't.
Okay.
Who does that,
Right.
It was more of a family secret kid swap thing.
Oh my goodness.
Sort of. Yeah. Kinship adoption is what some people call it, but not it wasn't legal. They did it
Okay.
fraudulently.
Okay.
And then that was a secret I didn't know until I was 22. So I found one family when I was 22.
Oh my goodness.
And then I keep looking because there's a storm starting. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
That was the family that I always knew I had, but I thought I was adopted, so I didn't think I was related to, and I am related to them. So that was kind of weird.
yeah.
And I found out when my real mom was dying, like on her deathbed, she mentioned 4 children instead of 3, and apparently they came looking for me. So that was
Ooh.
one chapter, age 22. Fast way forward to age, I don't know, 50 something. And I did a DNA test and I found out that I was Scottish
Yeah.
and that I was related to the Greer family,
Okay.
which is one of the famous people not far from you in Arkansas. There's a Greer's Ferry,
Okay.
Arkansas. It's in the Ozarks, I think. And that was my great grandfather, Bud Greer, also Jerry Gale's great
Yeah.
grandfather. So when I did the DNA test, it took me another year or two to take another second DNA test, which is how, because the first one we tried and tried and tried everything, and we couldn't figure out still who anybody was. But when I did another company's DNA test, that's when I found my biological nephew, DW, who is Jerry Gale's son.
Mm-hmm.
So it showed him as my cousin, but he's actually my nephew.
Okay.
So yeah, so then I found a whole other family in Missouri.
Oh my
How I
goodness.
found you.
That is really neat.
And
So,
Jerry Gale, my sister, and Billy Jack, my brother, always knew they had a sibling in the world. Our dad had told his wife and them. Isn't that sweet?
well, how did that affect you? Did you think that was really neat, or did you feel any way, a little like betrayal from anybody, or did you, how
Girl, I
did,
have been through all the emotions on that whole topic.
okay.
It's been a lifelong thing. When I found out the first incident at 22, I was just in shock for the longest time, honestly. I was just kind of confused and in shock, and I really felt like I didn't want any part of any other family. Just family's weird. Y'all are now like looking at me like I'm the freak. I don't know. I felt sort of like I don't know. I just didn't want family around for probably 8 years. I didn't even like see my real brothers and sisters that first time.
Yeah.
30, 40 years later, when I found the Mathis family, that was a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Never I never had a strong desire to look for my real dad because I loved my dad, the dad
Yeah.
that I was given. And he was biologically related to me, just wasn't my father
Yeah.
but he died when I was younger. So I always have pined for him. And when I found my real dad and his family, I mean, they just welcomed me. They were expecting me. They always knew about me. And I flew to Missouri and stayed in their house for a week before I even knew them.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, so it was very, very special. Seeing, my brother and sister pick me up at the airport, and then I got to meet Mama Mathis, who would have been my stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
And she has passed away since. So I'm just so glad I got to meet her,
Mm-hmm.
found them in time to meet her, but he had already passed, my real dad,
Yeah.
20 some years ago, maybe longer, but yeah. So, it was bittersweet, like all of this journey of this
Yeah.
book has been really bittersweet.
And
Yeah.
what's the title of that book?
Doesn't have a title yet.
Okay, so it's not all the way.
Oh no, it's been sitting in a box,
I
Trina,
see.
for
I
12
see.
years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how are you going to go about publishing that one? Will you go through a traditional publisher for that too? Or
Well, my current publisher is waiting to hear the story. They would love
okay,
to probably they do only nonfiction, so it would
yeah,
fit in their nonfiction. But they
yeah,
I said to them, we had lunch when I published this book like a week ago.
yeah.
I said, have you ever done a book on like DNA drama and some, dynamics about adoption and stuff? And they really haven't, other than sort of like, other
I mean,
topics around it. But
I'm saying you could
so,
pitch the movie made for TV movie or something too.
there
I
you
mean,
go.
I don't know. I'd watch that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good story. It has a lot of twists and
Yeah,
turns, and a lot of kind of Southern flair to it.
yeah.
And I don't know, it's a cool story with a lot of people involved that are intertwined all around me.
So what's holding you back from getting that one?
Really, oh, what's holding me back?
That one.
This came off the shelf.
That's
If you
what I
haven't
thought
heard,
maybe. That's what I kind of thought maybe.
yeah, no, the other book is going to be super fun to write. I can't wait. I cannot wait to write that one.
Good.
It's already written. It's just not written that well,
Yeah,
because I've learned a lot in 20 years.
sure.
But all the facts are written down and printed, thank goodness, because those hard drives are long ago,
Yeah.
lost. There's a lesson for people.
Mm-hmm.
Print something out, because 20 years, 12 years from now, you're gonna have a different computer and not be able to find it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But now I didn't have a good ending before, Trina. Now that I've found my Missouri family,
Yeah,
I have a good ending for that book. So now it's time.
good, good. Well, you'll have to come back and talk about that when
That'll be
you
next.
from
Okay.
that. But tell me where people can go to get the pennies from Vietnam, and if you're going to be speaking anywhere, or how people can connect with you, because I know people will really want to talk to you.
Yeah, I'd love that. Okay, so we have a website that's just penniesfromvietnam.com.
Okay.
Okay, on there, I do a blog when I'm going to somewhere or been to somewhere. I'll blog about it. We also if it'll have a little pop up, and there's a free book that you can get, which I encourage everybody to download. It is a series of questions that you would ask other people in the military. What did you wear? What did you eat? Who was
Oh,
your best
yeah.
friend? Did you have any pets? The things that you didn't, unrelated to wars sometimes. Um, it's called A Soldier Among Us, that book. When they go on my website, penniesfromvietnam.com, they will see a little pop up, and that'll give them that. Okay. And they put their email on that, then they're on my email list.
Okay.
And I also put my events coming up on a weekly, bi-weekly email, one or two a month, not a lot.
I love it. Thank you for taking some time to share the story and share your story with everybody. That it's gonna really change people's lives. I appreciate it, and come back anytime.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you for having me. It was so nice
Uh-huh.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Be sure you follow along. You can connect to any of the platforms from runradio.net. Hi, I'm Trina with Run Radio, the Run Radio podcast. And we have just finished talking to author of Pennies from Vietnam, Tracy Smith Mathis. And you're going to be visiting my networking chapter, ING, Inspiring New Growth. When are you going to be there?
You are part of the alumni chapter, is that
Yes, I
right?
am.
So you are first. and
Yay.
foremost on my list, it is going to be Thursday, 9 a.m. That is August 15th. Yes.
Yes, the 15th. Everybody is open and invited to come and listen. We have a meeting, a speaker. You get to meet some really great people in the industry. And there are also several chapters. You are not short of finding a chapter that fits with your schedule. So please head over to inspiringnewgrowth.com to find out more. Looking forward to seeing you, Tracy.
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and sharing my book with them. It's at Reese Nichols Real Estate Office. Is that right?
That's where the alumni chapter meets for sure.
That's
Yes,
the alumni
ma'am.
chapter. Okay. We
Yes.
have other chapters that day and the
Yep.
next day.
Yep.
So if they can't reach that, just tell them to look on that website and
Absolutely.
find us there. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. See you soon.
Okay.